For the past 11 years, Christmas has been very difficult for us because my wife is not there, and she was the one that was the spark plug of Christmas. But when you read the Christmas story, in keeping with the theme that we had followed about how bad our world is getting to be, and some of the things that have taken place, I think you will see that our nation is getting away, the people of the world are getting away from observing Christmas. First of all, it started way back in the 40s and 50s when rather than writing out Christmas, they used Xmas. The X being an unknown factor, especially in algebra. And the idea was that this was a time of celebration, and we didn't think about Jesus and his death on the cross. That began to develop even more till we start hearing about Black Friday. The Friday after Thanksgiving was the biggest shopping day of the year when the merchants were able to cover all their expenses for the whole year. Now Black Friday has been extended to the whole season. And these are things that bother me about Christmas. But when you go back into the scriptures and read the scriptures, there are three things in this Christmas story that I think illustrate the problems today that can be applied today. Now, I want to try to hurry through my sermon because of the number that are here and I'm preaching to the choir. But the very first one that comes to me is when Mary and Joseph came to Bethlehem because of the taxation of the Roman government and the enrollment for that taxation. Mary was with child, but she came that particular night, brought forth her firstborn child, and laid him in a manger, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger. And the Bible tells us three little words because, I'm not saying three little words, I'm sorry, I miscounted. Because there was no room for them in the inn. I want you to think about that for a moment. There was no room for them in the inn. If you notice, the title of my sermon is Christ Crowded Out. Now, down through the years, I've heard that innkeeper being maligned over and over and over again because he put them in a manger, in a stable, with wild animals, domesticated animals. A lot of these churches that have what live manger scene. We did that down in Corbin, Kentucky. And when we did, one of the sheep got loose and we chased them all over the neighborhood trying to bring them back in. And finally one of the younger men, Kevin White, caught him and brought him back. But we see these sheep and we think of the humble birth of Jesus Christ, but think with the wise man, with the innkeeper. He gave to Jesus what he had given. He provided for the Holy Family the only thing that he had to provide. He was in a dilemma. I want to help this couple, but I don't have any place to put them. I'll let them go in the stable. I'll let them use the stable. That'd be a good place for them. There was no other place for them to stay, and he did provide for them. The second thing that I want to emphasize is the fact I don't think it was going to be December 25th that Jesus was born. If I had my druthers, I would put the birth of Jesus Christ around September or October, most likely October, because the shepherds were out in their fields by night watching the sheep. It was late October, mid-October, that the shepherds would all, even now, will bring their sheep into the fold at night in order to keep them warm at the night, the whole night, nights that they had in Jerusalem, in and around Jerusalem. So I don't think it was possible. The reason the 25th was chosen was because of the pagan holiday of Ra, the sun god. The sun began to return to the northern hemisphere, and the Romans celebrated the joy that the sun god was coming back to bring warmth to their particular nation. And the Pope looked around, and said, we can't have the Christians celebrating Ra, so they put the birth of Jesus Christ at the 25th. Look up any encyclopedia, and they will tell you that. But I want to dwell on the idea of Jesus' family, Jesus being born in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. After the census was over, they got a place in a home where the kings went. But consider our society today, where our society is going. We're getting a lot of messages on Facebook emphasizing the real meaning of Christmas. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that one of our members sends out, shares a lot of these little quips of religious Carrie, unless she's not here. I was going to ask if I can use her, but I'm going to use her anyway. Carrie will send that out, and it's always a joy for me to read them because I see a lot of Carrie's deep faith when she does send them out to be able to share that with other people. Do you receive Santa Claus? I think one of the most telltale things I've ever seen, you may have seen it too, is where the manger scene is there, then you see Santa Claus kneel at the manger scene worshiping Jesus. I've seen that several times. In fact, I have one someplace. I don't know what my wife has done with it. It's probably packed with the Christmas stuff. But I think we put too much emphasis on the secular concept of Christmas. That Christ actually, his birth, actually, is being crowded out of the day that we have put aside for the celebration of his birthday. I am concerned because when I look at our society today, I think it's crowded out of the workplace. When I worked in the secular field, I noticed many things being done that was contrary to the morality that is stressed by Jesus Christ in the Bible. In fact, I thought I was going to get fired one time when I started working in a CPA firm. Because I was called in, I was given a inventory for one of the businesses that we were doing. And he said, use this. And when the business came up with too much income that was going to be taxed, I was told to use a lower inventory a higher inventory to be able to take away the taxation. And I looked at my boss, who was a Jew, very stern, and I called him by name, and I said, I will not use a fictitious figure for that inventory. So he looked at me and said, it's your job to do what I tell you to do. I said, well then, what about my job? I'm not going to do it. He thought for a moment, he says, well, bring the figures back to me and let me do it, and I'll give you the final figure to use. From then on, any inventory figure I was given came directly from his desk, And I didn't know whether they were right or wrong, but I had to use them because that was the only figure I had. And I thought I was going to lose my job. I thought I was going to lose my job. In our homes, do we get too busy that we don't set aside a time? I have a friend that used to teach music in the Graceland, in the Russell High Schools. She was a member of the Graceland Christian Church. They moved to Columbus, and she has a Facebook page, a private group that you have to ask permission to be able to join. And every day she tells a little bit of a hymn story and plays one of the old-time hymns. This morning it happened to be Angels We Have Heard on High. I have been listening to that since I joined her group. And I use that in order to be able to have my devotions. Usually I'm sitting in my chair and I think of the scriptures that I want to think of. Then I have a short prayer in my heart, in my life, to be able to have devotions giving God the honor. What about our education? What about our education? We teach evolution, not biblical creation. We teach socialism rather than Christianity. We wonder why there are so many school shootings. It's because prayer and Bible reading has been taken out of our secular schools. Christ crowded out. Oh, we could go on, but there is so much in our society. I had on my Facebook today from one of my preacher friends that made this statement that we ought to stop looking for intelligent life on Mars and begin looking to see if there's any intelligent life in Washington, D.C. I thought that was so true. Things are being done in Washington, D.C. that I wonder what the outcome is going to be and where it is leading our nation to. I also have read that there are more people, it's a problem when there are more people who work for a living, less people that work for a living than there are those that vote for a living. And I think a lot of the votes that are being cast today in our elections are what can I get out of the government? Welfare, socialism, and so forth. We're living in troublesome times. But it's exciting times. It's exciting times. And I think we need to get Christ back into Christmas. How do we do that? I have a list of things. I think we need to make a schedule and stick to it of family devotions, of personal devotions, let's put it that way. I think we ought to accept only the Bible as our rule of life. I don't care what the government tells me I have to do or need to do. I will do it as long as it doesn't contradict what the Bible says. As Americans, I think we need to be voting for those who have Christian principles and not secular principles. Know what your candidate has convictions of. If they believe in abortion, don't vote for them. If they believe in same-sex marriage, don't vote for them. If they believe in the rights of the homosexuals, don't vote for them. If they believe in some of the things that are being sold over our there's the drugs and so forth, don't vote for them. I think our vote can make a difference as far as the nation is concerned. Speak to others in love. about their relationship to God. Be faithful in your worship. I have that down. I think there are many people that attend church faithfully. And I'm not necessarily speaking of how long. I'm speaking of the church in general, but if the shoe fits, put it on. That make it play at the church, maybe being Christian. That play around with their idea of church worship. Oh, I can go when I want to. You know, when my kids were growing up, we didn't ask the kids if they wanted to go to church. We asked them what they wanted to wear when we went to church. Going to church was not an option. They went. They went. We need to realize that we need to be faithful in our daily living for Christ. I had an elder in the Greenford Christian Church when I preached there that made a statement in his Sunday school class. He said, I believe that when I come to church, I put on my Christianity at the door. When I leave, I take my Christianity off, I hang it on a hook, and don't wear it again until next Sunday morning. He was a politician. And he believed in the separation of church and state. That what he did as a politician was altogether different than what he did as a Christian. He was totally wrong. I don't see how a person can separate their Christian convictions and Christian ideals from their being on a separate basis. I think church and state is combined. I think we need to be faithful in all that we give to the Lord. Our lives, our heart, our mind, our being. Did Jesus withhold anything when he went to the cross? Did he not give his all for us? Let's bring Christ back into Christmas. Look at the words of the hymn that I put down here. Have you any room for Jesus? He who bore your load of sin. As he knocks and asks admission, sinners, will you let him in? Room for pleasure, room for business, room but for Christ the crucified. Not a place can he enter in the heart for which he died. Have you room for Jesus? Oh, as in grace he calls again. Oh, today is thy time accepted. Tomorrow you may call in vain. Room and time now give to Jesus. Soon will pass the day of grace. Soon thy heart lift cold and silent, and thy Savior's leading cease. Room for Jesus, King of glory. Hasten now his word obey. Swing the heart's door wildly open. Let him enter while you may. Let's let Jesus dwell in our hearts every hour, every minute, every second. Totally, without exception. Let him be King of your life. We're going to be singing, Just As I Am, one verse. And as we do so, may we pray that Christ will no longer be crowded out, but that he will be highly a part of our lives, not only at Christmas, but throughout the year. Shall we stand?